Hit the lotto. 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 I'm up, jumbo bucks. Big spender. Hit the lotto. Why? $3,000 gonna buy back in, bitch, I hope I win. Why? $3,000. So gotta hit the lotto. 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 Mega flex. Hit the lotto. Who knows what's next? Hit the lotto. Slurpee. Coke Icy. Hit the lotto. Hit the lotto. Give me two number threes. 1619. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Hit the lotto. Hit the lotto. Hit the lotto. Hit the lotto. Hit the lotto.
What is going on, everybody? We are back again. Hope everybody's having a good week out there. It's 9:30 Irish time. I am your host, Romo. Welcome to Hit the Lotto. That's theme song by Pet Fangs. Woo! And that logo by Poach. Welcome to the show. Hope you all had a good week once again. And I figure what better? I don't know if any of you guys that listen to any of the shows or download any of these pay any attention to our F1 shows, but we've had a couple, and I mean, we had to have another one again, and we are welcoming into the studio Tony C. Why not Kip? All those super names. I mean, if you know, last week, I don't know if you listened to last week's show there, Kip, but I had on a couple of streamers, and it is funny because I didn't even know their real names. Like I follow them on Twitch, and I didn't even know their real names. Yeah, and it was actually funny because it's like, what's your name? You know what I mean? Well, my streamer name is this. My real name is this. My gamer tag is this. Like we don't even have identities anymore. Our identities are all these other identities.
Across multi-platform species.
I mean, I don't ever remember that when I was a kid, like thinking, did my dad have multiple personalities? Like, you know what I mean? I just don't know. I mean, maybe you never know. I guess you never know. But
never know. Yeah.
Welcome to the show, pal. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, no, looking forward to a good old chat about this. Now, it was a great old season. It was unbelievable. So it was looking forward to it.
Formula One, we had. I mean, let's be honest. We've had some interesting years leading up to this year, but the result has always been the same, and that was it was getting repetitive, and so I mean, I guess realistically, what happened where there were rule changes that came into effect for every year. They just tinker. It seems like they made a few rule changes that actually evened the field out. And actually, the rule changes, which were pretty, and I'll get into this with you later, but they were pretty. But the ironic thing here is the outcome would have been the same. It would have been tighter. It would have done its job. It would have been the same. But because of human interference or lack thereof or whatever, because of the actual human element of this sport, we have a new champion, right? Would you agree with me?
Yeah, I suppose. I think the way I look at it is that it was a great season from start to finish, but to end on to have a new champion, it nearly breathes a new lease of life into the championship going into next year. Whereas like it would have been repetitive had a Hamilton won it. And it looked like he was. Like I wouldn't say he was robbed. This is racing. But like both scenarios would have been like greatness, if you know what I mean. Like, so you're looking like Max Verstappen, the young guy, his first world championship, or an 8-time world champion. It's never been done in the sport, you know. So it was either side of it was going to be great. But I think that, you know, I think it's good that Max had won and got Mercedes in this era of car. I think that was an important thing as well. You know, the Red Bulls in this V6 hybrid, the first team to beat Mercedes. Like, had a Mercedes went and won that going into next year's championship, we might have never, you know, it was just utter dominance, you know. Whereas now it's sort of like, wow, that's a energy drinks company has done it again and stole the race on the last day, you know. So
I guess my question then is, how do I? Yeah, I mean, I think it just goes back to that though. So let's just get it. Let's get into it. So that we understand what's going on. So what happened was, we have a new champion, and how many times in a row, Lewis Hamilton?
Well, it was in a row. This was his fifth in a row, was it?
Fifth in a row, and how many overall?
He has 7 in total.
So, and it's fifth in a row, and I mean
fourth in a row. I think that would have been Rosberg was fifth 2016. Yeah, so yeah, he's been dominating. You know, basically, Valtteri Bottas. Yeah, he's with them 5 years. So so that's 5. It would have been 5 in a row. Yeah.
So this Hamilton was the man. Like, he was the. I mean, again, it's a little bit obviously. I'm just talking about man to sport sort of thing. You're talking about Tiger Woods. You're talking about maybe not. I don't know. I don't know F1 to know. Are you on a Michael Jordan-esque level?
See, I've sort of thought about that as well, because I've watched The Last Dance. I've only actually recently watched it again. And I remember that era because I actually spent a bit of time in the States when Jordan was playing, you know, and like thinking back to all that, and that was ultimate greatness, you know what I mean? Like Hamilton is not far off it. He's not quite there, but I think he's, you know, it's very hard to compare, but he's up there with the elites like Tiger Woods of their sport, you know.
Yeah, irregardless, he's up there with the elites of that sport, right? I mean, that's what
there is no question he's up there with the likes of Schumacher, Senna, Prost, you know, Fangio, if we're going to go back that far or whatever, you know. But like, you know, the likes of Niki Lauda was another great as well. Like, he's definitely up there.
So statistically,
there's no denying about it.
How about statistically? Were there any statistically that blew him out of the water, or is this a statistical first sort of in F1? Like, were the other names that you just mentioned there, you know, the greats of the sport? Yeah. Did any of them have a run like Hamilton? I'm asking you.
Schumacher probably would be one that would come to mind. He had a great run with Ferrari. Now there was a blip in the middle of it, but he consistently won. Like that era of Formula One is quite similar to the era we just went past. Like that.
Yeah. So my question to you is perhaps Schumacher the Michael Jordan and Lewis Hamilton would be the LeBron James?
Yeah, you could make that comparison. You probably could. I still think. I still think that. Like, why is this guy asking me about fucking basketball? Yeah, but there's various comparisons as well to it. Like, you know, like Schumacher won across 2 teams. You know, Vettel and Ferrari. Yeah, and then Hamilton's won across McLaren and Mercedes. You know, so they've won across 2 teams. Like, there's very few drivers that have done it across more than 2 teams. I can't even think to mind now. But like Fangio, I actually was looking at it the other day. He won it across 4 teams, but a completely different era. Right. But I still think Schumacher is probably still the greatest. Hamilton is right there there with him though.
So now we come to present day, and they. I mean, like I said, Formula One is this crazy, like, you know what I mean? When you really look at it, you're like, oh, Jesus,
Yeah.
it's such this elitist kind of thing, whatever. But
Yeah.
what we're seeing basically was that really they made adjustments, and there are minor adjustments to for you and I mean, for the regular listener of my show, they would have no clue how minor. Even I have no clue. But over the years, they've really worked hard to equal out the cars before there's a massive engine change.
Yes.
So Mercedes was running away with it because of their motor and the stuff that they were doing to the car. And then
they built a great car. Yeah.
Yes, they built, and basically the laws were, the rules were, and still are, like, you can't see what they do. Like, it's so also secret, but you can pay for it and then do it yourself, but you can't actually design the same thing. And we've had this discussion before, but but now it's kind of like, okay, well, you can still do all that, but see this little scoop down here on the bottom of the car this year? We're going to fill this in where normally, they made these tweaks, and the aerodynamic tweaks actually worked, because we've had this, when you look at those top two drivers and how this ended up, I mean, it's the same engine and they're the same drivers. And it went from gap, and I know it got tightened a little bit last year, but last year was a bit of an anomaly because of COVID and running tracks back to back and doing all this crazy shit. There's a bit of an anomaly there. But like Hamilton, really, he still had, like, he's not getting, I know he's getting older, so his reflexes are a little bit different, but still, you'd think he's in his prime right now, right, Hamilton? And here comes Verstappen, and he wins it on the last race. I mean, traditionally, like, this is what this is what movies are made of, right?
It is. It's a real dream scenario for the sport as a whole. It's exactly what it needed after the 2014 changes, which it didn't go as well as planned. Let's put it that way. It really needed the new lease of life, and that it's sometimes I think about it, I go, it's actually a shame that this era car is ending now, because they're so close. Like, you can imagine if they ran for another year, how closer to even the midfield would get to the front runners, like, so we'll talk about later about what's happening in this world, whatever, but, like, it'd be interesting to see if we run these cars again next year, what would happen, how close it would be, would there be closer racing, because
except let's just get into this championship and then we can get into the rest of that. Except what happened was, and normally this is like a Ron Howard movie. You know what I mean? This is a story to be told here. And when you looked at what was the movie, the Ron Howard movie that he did,
Rush,
which was pretty good. Like, it was a pretty.
I
good,
liked
like,
it. I liked it.
Yeah,
it was.
And
good.
then. And then when you and even when you look at other major motion pictures, like the one on Lauda and what was that movie called? On Niki Lauda and
that was Rush. Sorry, was that?
That was Rush. That was Rush. Yeah, that was Rush.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I thought it was a good film, but the story was told. Like, there was the story. But if you were to tell this story, you'd have to wait until time had passed. And then you'd have to leave out the last bit, because what happened was, and again, you can basically explain more when I'm wrong, but this is just from the idiot standpoint of view. So what happened was, they made all these amazing changes, all this stuff that came down to it. This is what I alluded to at the beginning of the show. And basically what was supposed to happen was a car wrecked into the wall and a safety car came out.
Yeah.
And traditionally, what was supposed to happen is, and this is where there was allowed to be human error, is that at that point, Hamilton had about a 10-second lead on Verstappen, and Verstappen was behind lapped cars, and they would just, the safety car would come out, and they wouldn't unlap, and that's how it would go. And the commissioner or the steward or whatever decided to unlap the cars, which traditionally it's a gray area. Essentially, let's be honest. What we're finding out is that, like, okay, whatever. And you can explain why or why not he could have done that. But realistically, what happened was that happened. Verstappen had the soft tires.
Mhm.
Hamilton was cruising to victory with a 10-second lead with less than 10 laps to go. Now, maybe that could have got, maybe, but you and I both know statistically that's not happening. Not with Hamilton at the front of this pack. Now Verstappen's right behind you, beep, 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 and he's honking at you when he passes you. And he wins the race and he wins the championship. So you really couldn't put that unless you left out that bit about so there was some controversy to this result, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And the way the season has gone, it was probably more than expected that there was going to be some controversy at some point. I thought it was just going to be at the start. And when Max started, took the dive and he got the place, you know what I mean? But Hamilton was cute enough as well, going on past scenarios throughout the season. He probably thought, I'm just going to go. And he did, and he went. And that would have been controversial in itself. But then what happened, it was, for me, watching it, it was beyond belief. As soon as I seen Latifi, as the camera's just, that real big, quick pan to the car. Yeah. And it's in bits, and I know exactly where it is on track, and I just shouted, "Safety car!" like that, because basically, what I would have understood, and what I think they should have done, and should have been done quicker. Now I know there's safety aspects to it, but all the lapped cars should have been unlapped quicker, in my opinion. Now, that's usually what they would do. They would get them unlapped, and they would start racing again. Because the aim is to get racing again. Nobody wants a race to end under safety car.
Yeah,
That is the biggest cop out or whatever. It's just so. Now the way that, because Latifi in the place where he was on track, it was difficult to get him off track quick and then clean up the track. So it was hard to send faster cars around the track under safety car, which is what would happen. So, so they had to wait. But personally, I think that ultimately the right decision was made, because generally, I was thinking back afterwards, it's I can't remember where they've actually left lapped cars in between drivers, that are racing at the front. It's not really happened. So the steward had to, Michael Masi, he had to do something to get them racing again. He couldn't have a championship deciding race end under yellow flags or with interference from cars that they aren't racing, ultimately. So it was a bit of a botched job, to be honest. But ultimately, I think the thinking behind what was happening was right. Mercedes screwed up. They didn't pit. I'm not sure they would have had as good a chance behind Max. But I know Max was in the better position. And I don't know, would you want to be behind the guy? Well, of course you want to be behind the guy on older tyres. So, if they were both on soft tyres, I'm not sure how it would have ended. Probably in more controversy. But ultimately, in my own opinion, and I think from looking afterwards, is that this is probably the right way. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best way to go. And ultimately, Hamilton lost out. And the way he handled losing it just shows what a great sports person he is, and that he is truly one of the greats. I'm not sure Michael Schumacher would have reacted the same as him. Go up and shake Max Verstappen's hand, and then his father come out. It was great to see. I think Hamilton knows himself. It was a flip of a coin. It could have been either way, and unlucky, very unlucky, very controversial.
And that wasn't kind of the only time, really, during the year. And this is a thing with F1, I guess, right? Is that wasn't the only time, sort of during the year, that there were things that happened, passes and things that both guys should have been punished for, and neither one of them was punished, or they've gotten into some, as you guys love to say, argy bargy, and
and they really have.
You're like, whoa, that was uncalled for. That should be, if that was anybody else, that's a penalty. Oh well, no, it's Hamilton Verstappen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're tied on points. Who's going to be the one to give them the exactly. So there was some stuff that kind of happened. But did they kind of just let them play this year? They let the two guys play.
Yeah, there was certainly an element to that. Like you're looking at the way like Verstappen defends, the way he attacks. He's very aggressive, like to be fair, in like Hamilton hasn't had anyone really on that level in an equalish car. You know, probably faster 3/4 of the season. You know what I mean? He's having to deal with this guy that might have a slight edge on pace and try and overtake him. You know, and yeah, I think they did. There was certain scenarios like Brazil was one of them that springs to mind. You know, his Verstappen's defense was aggressive to say the least. You know, but it was great to see like
Yeah.
that they did race. You know, there was probably other penalties that they probably didn't need to bring in. Like Saudi was a shit show. Um, I that was probably one of the most bizarre like tracks and things I've seen in a long time. It was just a strange race. It was great to see, but I'm not sure about that track. It's going to cause problems in the future. Um,
Yeah.
they were allowed to race there as well. There was some decisions the letting Hamilton overtake Verstappen, that confusion when Hamilton went into the back of him. It was just there were certain scenarios you're like, wow, this is strange. Getting a 10-second penalty for that when he left plenty of road for Hamilton to go through. I don't know.
Yeah.
That it's just there's a few crazy incidents, but ultimately they were let race, and racing decided it in the end. And I was happy enough with how it ended.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. I mean, I appreciate the point of view, and we got a new man on top. Let's run down this list, and
Yeah, yeah,
Max Verstappen's on top. He's not. He's a young kid still. Let's be honest.
yeah,
But these
yeah,
guys all
yeah, yeah.
start so young. They start so young in F1. But he's a young kid. There's going to be changes coming in. But is he? Can he? Obviously experience the championship. He needs to live the championship. What will this do to him? Will this change? I mean, he's a young kid. Will he have the same, sort of Lewis Hamilton drive about him, or will he let this kind of get to his head? Who knows?
I,
Do you
who
think that could
knows?
happen?
I'm not he's a very calm. Seems it comes across as very calm character outside of the car,
Mm-hmm.
and he did say that even before if he wins it, he will have accomplished everything he's wanted to accomplish in Formula One. So everything else will be a bonus. I don't necessarily believe that. If you're going to be put in a competitive car every year and still race, then of course you want to win. So I take it with a grain of salt. I do think he wants to win multiple championships. If he doesn't, though, I don't think it'll be the end of the world for him. But
Yeah.
he's definitely doing it because he's not doing what Rosberg did and has won it and goes, right, I've there completed it, ticked it, and left. So he's still there. He's still going to be fighting and battling, and hopefully competitively as well.
All right, so now we got the king has been dethroned. He's become
Yeah.
the first runner up, and there's going to be basically all these changes are about to take place. Is this Hamilton over, or do you think he'll try? He's now did this losing this year almost help to motivate him for next year with the engine changes and if he can prove to be the first one to win a championship with these massive sort of additional changes that are about to take place.
Yeah.
Will that then be there's the movie? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh wait.
Yeah.
After the credits roll, they're like, oh, by the way,
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton came
Yeah.
back the next year to win 3 more championships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
That's entirely possible. It really is. Due to the changes that are happening, like it's they're quite radical changes. The cars are going to be completely different in the way that they operate. Using
Yeah.
aero is the main theme with the change. And they want to try and just get closer racing, basically. But everyone's sort of starting on, the FIA have said, right, this is what you have to work towards here. The markers is whatever has to be a couple of meters wide and whatever, this type of thing. and they're all just sort of saying, right, well, let's see where we can find loopholes. And it's probably going to see, that's the thing with these regulation changes, especially the big ones, is that somebody can just do it really well. And, like you think back on like the regulation changes with the diffusers and how Braun won it with the double diffusers, and then how they changed the regulations and it helped the Red Bulls with their blown diffusers.
Totally.
And and you can sort of romp away because you've created something really good, and everyone else now is racing to copy it and to see how quick it can be. So hopefully,
Well, that's why. Is that why? Sorry to cut over you, but watching the F1 show on Netflix there, and Hamilton. One thing that we learned about Hamilton during this is that maybe he was full of shit when you saw this, but he always talked about the team. Always said the right thing about the team. And when you say like what you're saying, it's not Hamilton that's figuring that out. It's not fucking who's the head of the Mercedes team?
Toto.
It's not Toto who's actually figuring it out.
No,
it's who's the head of Red Bull?
It's Christian.
It's not Christian. Christian's not figuring it. It's one of those engineers in the lab. The team of engineers in the lab that are like they study the rule book and then figure out exactly what the rules are not saying, and that's how they get a creative advantage.
Yes, that's it, and that's how it's being done. That's sort of like your 101 going into F1 is sort of like this is what you do. You try and find the creative advantage where you can find it. Where what it's exactly what you said there is what the rules don't say. So like they're pretty. From what Formula One and FIA are saying, it's pretty stringent what they're doing. There's a lot of similar parts like the brakes, the wheels. These are all similar things. That like are I don't know if they're going to be all one supplier, but they're all going to be one spec. They all have to meet a very tight spec. Mm-hmm. So like your wheels and brakes are going to be the same. You'll have your engines. Engines are, there's an engine freeze now. So whatever the engines are, that's it. Now you can't do anything to them. So it'll be interesting with the aero because there's strong people that do that at Red Bull, like Adrian Newey is, renowned for this type of thing. This is his thing, is finding aero, finding advantages, and especially moving to the new ground effect. I'm sure he has a trick or two up his sleeve, but like everyone has all the tools that he has as well. So there's guys in Mercedes, there's guys in McLaren, Ferrari. They're all, I'm hoping it'll be tighter. Going into a regulation change year, because generally it's not tight. Somebody generally just runs away with it or has an advantage.
Right. So you're saying he can do it, though? You're saying even with the changes, Hamilton's got a chance?
Yeah, no, definitely especially with the team like Mercedes, they're bred winners. Like they know how to win. They know how to build a car. They've got a fantastic engine, and they've got a huge resource. And they won the constructors, so they have a heap of money behind them now as well from that. So, like, there definitely is a chance that Hamilton could ramp away, but he'll be met with Russell, who I think will be
that leads me into my next question. And number three driver of the year, he's going to have to do it without his longtime teammate and number 2 driver Valtteri Bottas, and because they've decided to move in different directions, and Bottas came in third, and you know what? For all the shit that I'll tell you, I watched a lot of F1 this year on Sky.
Yeah.
And I hear I hear a lot of like shit talking on Bottas, right? I really do. I hear a lot of Bottas this, Bottas. So Bottas literally had all these pundits to Bottas this, Bottas that, Bottas this, Bottas that. Bottas won a race and he still came in third in the season. And I know it's the car. I get it. There, I know that this car, that car is an amazing car. But everybody was against Valtteri Bottas. So they knew he was no longer Merc. So they knew he was no longer Hamilton's boy. So all the Hamilton heads out there, we don't fucking need him. So Bottas had a weird season. We knew that was going to happen. And he still finished a strong third.
Yeah, he did.
He won a race, right?
Deservedly so. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's a consistent consistent driver. He's very quick over one lap. He's just not he's not really, really fast. Like, he's just not on the level of the Hamilton and Verstappen's. Like,
No.
he's just not quite there. But he's played the great teammate. Even, I think after he got the news, I think he was a little bit off. Maybe I think there was a scenario in one of the races where he said, like, yeah, whatever. Or at Monza, wasn't it, or something like that, when when he's seen the two cars on top of one another. But look, he's a good driver. He had a chance to win a Formula One championship just being with Merck. It just showed over 5 years that he just didn't have the pace on Hamilton.
Yep.
And ultimately Verstappen as well this year. So.
And then, which is the irony, then over again, like it's all clustered. It's Red Bull, Merc, Red Bull. Because those it's about the vehicle and it's about the A driver pulling the B driver along with him to help him get to a championship. And we come to a guy that you and I have had a discussion about in the past, and I feel hopefully because Perez he's a different kind of animal, and I would hope that Perez would be super duper smart and say, you know what, this is perfect. Like Bottas probably should have and would have, unless, I'll stick to this. I'll stick to Verstappen's coattail. I'm going to be the second best driver in this championship next to Hamilton. Like, there's one other guy, and Perez was nowhere near that spot until he came to Red Bull and became the number 2 to. So Perez, obviously we talked about it before, and these guys want to win. They want to win. But what are the odds that Perez isn't going to get with a better car?
No.
He's never going to be the number 1 now. So he should just be the happiest number 2 in the world and make millions of fucking dollars to be that guy. To be Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, exactly. He's in an ideal situation, like especially if Red Bull provide a car like, let's say, Mercedes did in 2014. You know what I mean? Like, that runs away with it. Like, he'll be second and he'll be happy. They'll win constructors and he's in an ideal position. I think it's just you're up against Max. Like, it's like saying you're up against Lewis. These guys they're on a different level. Like, they've been consistently like a half second faster than their teammate consistently over the season. Like, in F1,
there's only 2. Those 2. The funny thing is that all these changes, they did bring teams closer together. But what they did was they brought Red Bull closer to Merck.
Yes, they did.
Because we'll get it, and that will lead us into the next one. Because now what it did was it kind of bulked the number 3, 4, and that's there was sort of this race for number 3, but now it really brought that race quite tight in my opinion, because both of these teams are really looking positive, and it's all going to come down to if their teams can put together the car, because the drivers are good, but they're not Verstappen, Hamilton good. But you talk about a kid named Lando Norris that is just the kid to sort of take that sort of British crown from Hamilton when he's ready to pass it. I know he's got one coming. He's got a fella coming into his own team, but the fact is, like, Lando Norris is, and now the Ferrari with Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, those two guys, they need to find who's their number 1 is going to be, but they're both studs.
Oh man, they are really, like, it's such a strong pair. Really is, like, probably one of the strongest on the grid. If I'm honest, like, it's like to have Carlos Sainz and Leclerc, still 2 young drivers about to come into their prime. Like, they're the guys you'd want to have on a long-term basis. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But, Ferrari. I have you noticed that Ferrari? It's just been very quiet about Ferrari. Ferrari have just gone under the radar, and I think that's on purpose.
Yes.
I really do. I really do. It's just that the lack of anything about Ferrari in media or anything is sort of like, these boys are up to something, which is great.
I think that you're right. I do. I mean, you haven't heard much. What hopefully they're fucking hopefully they're figuring this shit out to get their car back up there again. As well as as well as now you have, again, this McLaren team where Lando,
Yeah.
and we talked about Ricardo before too. Ricardo has to, and again, Ricardo won a race this year. So, and there's
Yeah.
only four. I think there's only four guys who won races that weren't named
Yeah.
Verstappen and Hamilton.
Yes.
Ricardo won a
Yeah.
race this year. I mean, but Ricardo is for sure the number 2 to Norris because I think Ricardo is happy being Danny Ricardo. You know what I mean? I know he wants to win. Don't get me wrong; he's motivated.
Yeah.
But again, my thing is like he's got to be motivated to be the in this race for the number 3 car in F1, right? Or do you think that Ricardo won't accept that second driver? I mean, he's the second driver at McLaren, right?
Yeah, he is. Well, like this year, like they probably went in as equals, and it's just Lando knows the car. Seemingly, it's a tricky enough car to drive. Ricardo struggled with the brakes, and he seemed to struggle all season. Like he's always been behind him. I know he won the race and Lando didn't, but Lando's been there and thereabouts in a lot of races. Like wasn't he a couple of podiums this year? He's a very good talent. And I think the fact that he's been with the team so long is great. But also, on the other hand, like Ricardo was making the move to McLaren, was thinking, well, a year or so in advance. He's waiting for the 2022 car. That was probably his major thinking. Like Hamilton moving to Mercedes, and it was in 2012, he did 2 seasons, and they weren't doing anything. But in the background, they knew they were working on a supreme engine, which turned out to be, so that's with these race changes, it could be McLaren that benefit from this, from having a strong driver lineup, great aero, and they have the Mercedes power unit in the back. So it's open, like and anything could happen. There's so many different scenarios you think of, like what could happen, like who gets the best car and how do they dominate, or if they dominate,
and then we'll that's our top 8, and let's be honest with you, I mean, unless there's some, I mean, don't get me wrong, anything is possible. Anything is possible here, but I mean, we're almost getting into, we're getting into the AlphaTauri team, which is a second team essentially. We're getting into that the Alpine team, which is going to be, which for me is the interesting one to talk to you about. Aston Martin, Williams, and the Haas Alfa Romeo team there. But of those teams at I just mentioned there, which ones do you see stepping it up next year to possibly be able to challenge for that 3-4?
3-4. I'm probably thinking. It's out of
I know you like that Tsunoda kid.
Yeah, like I do like him, and I like the way he drives, and he's a good little driver, and I think he has a career in Formula One. I think he is one of them drivers that will step up, and he'll be one of them good guys, consistent guys throughout the grid once he settles in, But out of them, like it's hard to say. So I think that like the top 2 will be there. It'll be Merc and Red Bull, probably Ferrari, McLaren. That's a tough one, like because they're so close. But I don't know. I think. I think I'd probably go with McLaren just on form, and then maybe Ferrari, and then you mentioned Alpine, and I'm very intrigued with Alpine as well because of Alonso making that move to come back into Formula One was definitely looking at the 2022 car as well and what they can use him for and how help develop the car and things like that. So Alpine are a dark horse as well. I seen at testing they weren't hiding too much of their car. So it was interesting to see what it looked like. Like it's only a mule car. It's not going to look like it, but they had some interesting bits on it. And the fact that another thing about Alpine is the start of this season after a bit of all left, which was a shock. But the guy that they got in is a really good guy. He's come from MotoGP, like, and he's been with teams like I think it was Suzuki, and he brought them back up from nowhere, like, and so he's another integral part to it, is to building this like championship winning team. So Alpine are a dark horse as well. I don't think they're going to go away and win anything, but they'll be closer to the top 4 or 5 anyway, I think. Definitely.
All right. That's so. Let's look at these. How about a kid like? I mean, he's pretty much stuck in neutral there. Gasly scores 110 points this year, only 5 points less than Ricardo, but plenty above 20 points, 30 points above his next challenger, and he's never gonna get any better than he's been fucked. You know what I mean?
It's a really it's a difficult one because he's a really good driver, as he's proven. He can drive the car well, and he comes across really well as a sports person as well. In general, he's a likable type of character, and he just seems to be stuck in this Red Bull arena, and nobody will touch him. You know what I mean? Like he's like
so weird.
I think he'll spend a year, maybe 2 at AlphaTauri, and he'll probably move on when seats start to open up with other teams.
Yeah.
I can't see him getting like a big 3, let's say Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull drive again.
Yeah, and could it be almost? Unfortunately, Christian Horner just ruined this kid because of the way it all went down. Did Christian Horner ruin this kid? And because you don't, and again, you watch the shows, you see these guys, they're fucking ruthless. Especially Horner. Christian Horner is fucking ruthless. And you see that. You know what I mean? And he tries to come across as like this super cool, like, I'm serious, I'm really blah, blah, blah. He's fucking ruthless because he knows how good of a gig he's got. He knows how he's extremely motivated. And he puts those two together and says, I'm still a young man. I'm going to do everything I can to fucking make this work. He's making fucking millions.
Oh, yeah. He's doing some job. Yeah.
So he's like, I'm going to be fucking ruthless until I retire. I'm just going to be ruthless and make so much fucking money that when I retire, I can literally just sit back and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So Horner, and he did that to Gasly, kind of fucked with his career a little bit. No, I'm not. I mean, Gasly's not. I'm not saying he's going to run anything, but did he, like you said, he's pretty much lost a seat with any of the big boys. You don't see that happening.
I don't see unless AlphaTauri provide him a decent car and it can keep up with the Red Bulls. But that's their only sort of saving grace, is that they can sort of get some technology from the Red Bull. You could see in certain circumstances throughout the season they've been extremely quick and surprisingly quick and right on the tails of Red Bull. But to do that consistently they'll struggle, and they don't have the resources that their big brother has. So So I feel sorry for him because he's a good guy and he's a good driver. But just hopefully he hangs around. He deserves a good run at something anyway.
Well, what do you think? Pierre Gasly is the number 9 F1 driver in the world. How much do you think? What do you think a guy like Pierre Gasly makes? What's his contract for?
He's probably not on a huge amount, but I don't know. He's not in the millions, is he? Is he in the millions?
He's got to be, right?
You'd be surprised some of these Red Bull drivers are on nothing. You know what I mean?
You could be right.
Like I wouldn't say Yuki Tsunoda isn't on a great deal. I'd say he's got a company car at $100,000 and you're fucking driving Formula One. You're happy.
Yeah, well, they all find home domicile somewhere where there's no taxes and you know what I mean. These guys are all right. So let's skip over. Yeah. Let's skip over the Alpine guys, and because we'll use that for next year predictions for next year. But let's talk Vettel, man. I mean, poor Sebastian Vettel. Is Sebastian Vettel a case of great athletes sometimes don't realize when it's time to say goodbye?
Yeah, he seems to be dwindling away, doesn't he? It's just there doesn't seem. Even with the moves, you're sort of like, there has to be something, has to be positive, and it didn't really work out the way he wanted. Again, I don't know what, is his main focus there is the next year's car or whatever. But I just feel sorry. He's another great driver, just struggling with the car. He's struggled since 2014, since this hybrid era came in, he's struggled with every car. Like, he got a decent run with Ferrari there in the middle of it, came close, but like, really, was he that close? Not hugely. Like, so yeah, I think he's just dwindling out. Another year. I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves after next year. Another bad year.
Yeah, you
Could be
think that could be
important first 6 races for him, I think, next year, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's a world champion and all that, but it was a poor season. Not consistent. He's getting mixed up in fucking shit that he shouldn't be getting mixed up in. He got the overtaking award, but like, that's probably due to just qualifying really badly and overtaking. You know what I mean? So, like, it's a shame to see, but like, his time is probably, I can't see him winning anything with Aston Martin, to be honest with you.
Well, I'd say that instead of continuing to go down the list, because at this stage, when we look down the list, then you're talking, Russell, who won't be there, but you're talking about a Williams team, and you're talking about Alfa Romeo team and a Haas team that, let's be honest, like, you know what I mean? They're and a lot of things are probably going to be changing,
and they knew it as well. I think, you got the feeling that these lower teams, like especially Haas, sort of really seemed to just lose interest, and they were just solid backmarkers and stuff. Yeah, it was very uneventful towards the back of the grid. But
Haas didn't score a single point.
Yeah,
constructor point.
That's rough.
Not one point.
Not 1 point. Like, and like, I don't really rate Mazepin. He was in F2. He was quickish, but he was just aggressive and silly and making stupid mistakes and stuff like that. Whereas Mick Schumacher is a consistent, decent driver. He does have a future in Formula One. It's whether Haas can provide a half decent car for him next year to really show what he's made of. But I just
and the problem there though is that Mazepin ain't going nowhere.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. It's crazy.
Realistically, old man Stroll there must be like laughing. You know what I mean? Because his kid's better than fucking. His kid's better than Mazepin's kid, because we got now these two owner daddies of guys. You know what I mean? But Haas didn't score a point.
It's disappointing. Like, and it's not like they didn't score a point. They didn't come close.
Yeah,
they didn't come close.
Yeah, like it was literally every race they were 19 and 20. Every race 18 and 20.
I think, did Mick get out of Q1 once? I think maybe I'd have to look back, but like, that was what they were going for, was like getting out of Q1. And I think
that's another. Were there races this year where the qualifying was different than other races?
Oh yeah, the sprint races. Yeah. So you did your qualifying for the sprint race on the Friday, where the practice 2 session was in the afternoon, and then you have a practice 3 session on Saturday morning, and then followed by a sprint race, which qualifies where you finish in that race is where you start the grid on Sunday. So it was just something different. They're doing it next year as well. So
but again, it's kind of like, it's funny because it's sort of like, these are the rules. This is how we adhere to this is how we're going to figure out what part of the grid numbers 1 through 20 are going to start. And then they're like, but we're going to fuck around with some stuff and try some stuff too, and see if we can make it a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like a constant tinkering. Tinkering.
That's it. Like that.
Whether it's good or bad, like I think that the sprint thing seems to have gotten a lot of positive affirmation from it.
Yeah, like I'd say if you ask the drivers, they're probably not too keen on running 2 races.
I think for
having the race for the fans though, it's brilliant, because there's a sort of a main event of the 3 days of the weekend, whereas Friday is just sort of like, like I'd sit down in the afternoon and I watch the rerun of the practice and just listen to what they talk. You know what I mean? Have it on in the background, things like that. But it's not something you just go and sit down and watch. And watch every lap. Can be quite boring, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Whereas now you move something like qualifying, where it actually means something. So you go through your Q1, 2, and 3. So it's just a bit more of a spectacle, and it's good. Like, it'd be great to go to one and do the full weekend and actually physically be there and see it. You know what I mean? Like something like where are they doing it next year? God, I can't remember. But they're doing it. I think it's 5 places they're doing it. I think Brazil is one of them. But it
Okay.
just adds a different element. I'm not a massive fan of it, really, because I think that the format of Q1, 2, and 3, I think they've really nailed it. You know what I mean? It's a really good format for qualifying. I remember when it came in and everyone was like, wow, this is actually really good. And you just have to, like, you know, if it's not broke, you don't really have to fix it. But to get, I suppose, added eyes on the TVs, you need them across the 3 days, you know. So there's obviously the commercial aspect to it as well, I'd say.
All right, so let's talk next year. What are your predictions to happen next year? What kind of changes are gonna? We already talked about. There's going to be the
Yeah.
engine changes or the engine freeze, and then the changes
Yeah.
to move things in. But I'm talking about drivers, teams. What's what do you think's gonna happen? Do you think something? What surprise do you think could possibly happen here? What are we looking at?
Yeah. Well, so if ask me who's going to win it, or who's going to be at the top, because of the changes that are happening and the person that's designing the car for Red Bull, Adrian Newey, I just have a feeling he might have a little trick up his sleeve, or that they can really build something. My only concern is with the engine, and their Honda isn't here anymore. Red Bull are building their own engines. You know, I'm not. That's the only sort of question mark for me. I know they can build a decent car, but how are they building engines? Now they're going to obviously have the crossover from Honda, you know, and it's an engine free, so they don't have to develop it; they just have to build it. So that's, you know, probably less risk. But I do think Red Bull might just have the edge in the aero department. Mercedes are going to be right there. I think the likes of Ferrari, McLaren are going to be right in there as well. I just think that with the extra year, all the development they've been able to do over this extra year and really understand what they're doing, I think it's going to be. I'm hoping it's going to be close to the top. But I actually genuinely do think that it will be, just like how things have played out, how the drivers have moved and settled into their different places. You know, I definitely just think Red Bull might eke it, but Mercedes, McLaren, everyone, they're going to be close together. It'll be hard to say. Like, I'm really looking forward to the first day of testing next February, and just
So you're
seeing.
yes, I mean that sounds like I mean what a huge change from the last 5 years. Let's be honest.
It's a dramatic change. Like, it's not just a tweak. Like, it's fundamentally a different car and a way of generating downforce. Like, they have 2 big massive tunnels in the floor underneath the car. I'm going back to the ground effect days. It's
Right.
just basically like it just sucks the cars down and mainly reduces the wash of air coming out the back of the car, because it's sort of along the floor. Whereas you're trying to generate downforce on top of the car, it's all the wash from the air on the rear wing is going up in the air and you can't follow, and they're complaining about the heat in their brakes, blah, blah, blah. This is designed to sort of reduce that, that they can follow easier, because they're getting all their downforce from underneath the car instead of on top of the car. And also the front wings are changed. They've wheel covers, 18-inch wheels now, bigger rims for, I'm not sure what's the added value in that, but they look cool. Other than that, like it's So that's why, like, it could be anyone's game. Like, you never know. It's just who builds the best car, basically, because the engines are all the same. So it's just who can build the best car. And I hope they all build really strong cars, because it'll be hard to top what happened this season going into next season. Like, you know, so.
And Hamilton doesn't skip a beat, even with Russell coming in and Bottas gone.
No, I think Russell would be quicker than Bottas. I think if Bottas had stayed, I
think?
don't see Russell. Yeah, I think Russell is quicker. We've seen that race in Bahrain there, a couple of years back, where he got in the car and was immediately quick. Like, that's very rare to see, that somebody's that quick in a car so different, like the slowest car going into the fastest car. So he definitely That's why I just think he'll be quicker than Bottas. Will he be quicker than Hamilton? I'm not so sure. Like and especially after Hamilton losing out, I think Hamilton's just going to want to hope he gets a decent car and just wants to win. And yeah, so it'll be an interesting team battle if Russell's right on Hamilton's heels, which will make for good viewing as well.
I mean, it would be amazing just again further proof. Russell goes from scoring 16 points to scoring in the 300s. Overnight, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like it's the dream job. Like he's got the dream ticket in Formula One. Like he
pretty much got the golden ticket, didn't he?
Yeah,
he got the
dream
ticket.
He did. Like, and Perez is a close second as well.
Yeah. Well, Perez is that close second because Perez should be kind of accepting Verstappen's the man, you know what I mean? And he should just be holding on. Whereas Russell is not only accepting that he's the second man, but he's also accepting that at some point Hamilton's going to try to pass the reins to him. So he's going to get the reins passed to him by one of the greatest in history. So, you're right. Exactly. You're right. That, they're both dream jobs for different reasons. You know what I mean?
Yes. Definitely.
And let's hope that like you said, let's hope Ferrari and McLaren have been putting their heads down and bring themselves back to greatness once again. It'd be great to have a 4-way race at the top. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a 4-way race at the top?
It'd be brilliant. Like it'd be brilliant, especially after last season. Like to build on it, to have like the likes of Ferrari up at top, like because you want to have the red car up at the front again. And like I'm not a big Ferrari fan, but as I said, like when you don't hear about them, you start like, where are they? Or what's going on? So I want to see them up there. I want to see McLaren do well. Like I think what Zach Brown has done for McLaren, I think is just amazing, and he's probably one of the best. Him and Toto are probably the best team managers out there, and I think if he keeps doing what he's doing, whatever it is, and getting people in the right place, and just hopefully that continues and they have a strong start. And it'd be good. It'd be good to see a good battle between all the teams.
Yeah. So if you had your chance to pick one job to be one in this Formula One, right? So the lead driver for Merck, or the second driver for Red Bull, or an AlphaTauri driver, or the head of this or the head of that, or what role would you want to have?
Oh God, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure I'd want to have a driver job.
I'll tell you mine right away. It would definitely be a team, lead role. It'd definitely be that Toto, that Christian Horner role, because
I think that's where I'd be going.
Imagine to get the opportunity to be like, look, we're going to give you a ton of money, and I don't know anything about the sport. But I would still want that job, just to get that challenge to say, could I put a fucking team of engineers together? Could I go out and say, who are the best of the fucking best, and motivate them on to victory? Could I do that? Could I get these
that's what they're doing. Like it's unbelievable. Like you look at what Toto Wolff has achieved. Like that's like probably doesn't get talked about enough. Like is what how he's managed that team throughout this whole thing, and even before the regulation changed in 2014. So like, and as well, Horner is to be commended as well. Like I don't know which one. If I had the choice between Merck or Red Bull, I don't know. Like,
well, I mean, doesn't Toto?
I think the Red Bull would be the harder job, no doubt. You know what I mean? So I think the Red Bull work job.
I think the Red Bull would be the harder job. I think that I think that Wolff job, where he's basically at this stage again, he can Toto Wolff owns the drivers. If he's not the team principal, then the drivers belong to him. You know what I mean? Like
he owns 1/3 of Mercedes now, or something as well. Like he's like
1/3 of
Mercedes, like as Mercedes or like Daimler, the big top,
Fucking Toto Wolff, man. What a fucking superstar that guy.
Man. Yeah. That's unbelievable.
What a superstar that guy. Well, look, Tony, I appreciate you coming on and talking Formula One, man. That was that
man.
was
That was
a
good.
ton
That
of
was good.
fun, and that
Yeah,
was a crazy good hour to talk about
yeah,
it. We're gonna have some exciting stuff going on next year, man.
yeah,
I do have a couple of topics only because and if
yeah,
you up for something non
yeah.
and then
Definitely. Yeah,
we're gonna fly through these a little bit, but
yeah.
um so did you see that they just basically the kind of the final report sort of came out about you realize Ireland's health service exchange was attacked, right? The HSE was
Yes.
attacked with ransomware. Okay, the
Mm-hmm.
same ones that did a few over in the states. These hackers
Oh
that
yeah,
looks like there were these Russian team. Basically, a lot of them just seem to be these crazy young kid criminals that didn't
yeah,
realize, and it even happened sort of here. These
yeah.
guys who did this didn't realize. Well, not only is this somebody's healthcare service, a government healthcare service, but they don't have any fucking money. Like, we're not going to get shit out of this, and people are going to die. This is the
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
it was
yeah,
bad publicity for them. So
yeah,
they they hacked the system. It
yeah,
happened, and then they gave them. They didn't. They said, "Look, we'll just give you the key to get back. We'll just give
yeah,
you. We're going to let you fix it. We're going to give it back, and we're going to slink on out of here because
yeah,
you don't have any money to give us anyway." And holy shit, right?
yeah,
So that's sort of how it kind of
yeah.
went down. But they just released a report talking about how it happened.
Oh
I don't know if
God.
you've seen this. Did you see this?
I think I briefly see now that you mention it something about an email attachment.
So
Is
yeah,
it?
so basically, it was an Excel document in a phishing email that had malware infected. Right,
Oh
that's what
God.
infected the first workstation on March 8th.
Yeah.
Right, and on the 31st, the HSE antivirus found it. So they
Oh.
actually found it sitting on the first computer, within
Yeah.
2 weeks or whatever. Right,
Yeah.
but the antivirus was set to monitor mode, and it wasn't set to block anything. It was set to just kick something up for someone who had to read it and say, "What are you going to do here?" And you just, you've seen it happen, right? Well, there's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it pops up on
Hmm.
your screen, old school, saying,
Yeah.
"There's a malware, something going on here. What do you want to do about
Mm-hmm.
this?" And you just sort of, move on. Somebody just moved on at the HSC, possibly. I don't know, but basically that's
Oh
so
no,
the
they
bad.
definitely did.
So the software wasn't it was this most simplest of software, and then by May 7th or whatever, they compromised every day. Over the next 5 days after May, they had all the hospitals, and everything was brought to a halt.
Oh
As
yeah.
you know, here everybody was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
writing shit on paper and like filing
Yeah. Yeah.
shit. Like, it's
Oh
crazy. When
man.
I thought
Yeah.
about it, we talk about these
Yeah.
changes and things, and
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the reasons that this happened too was that the hospital network, the HSC, had
Yeah.
over 30,000 workstations using Windows 7, which was end
Oh,
of
I don't
life,
believe. Yeah, that was. Yeah, and it's been gone a long time.
with zero support.
Yeah.
And our
Yeah.
health service here in Ireland, our health service
Windows.
only in Ireland. I mean,
Look,
this is
I'm
literally
sort of
only in
glad it's
Ireland.
Windows 7. Yeah, because
I
yeah,
mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if it's
literally
Windows 95 or something like that. There.
only in Ireland. And you know what? Look, at the end of the day, the HSC bounced back, and like everything sort of. And this was during a pandemic, and it's still kind of,
Yeah.
they just sort of said, "All right, let's just keep going." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's just
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
moving on. But can you believe that's
That's
welcome only in Ireland,
unbelievable.
right? Is that
Yeah,
only in
only
Ireland?
it's 100% in Ireland. Yeah, it's countries like us as well. Like that's some IT department. Like, no, I'm not gonna bother me whole doing that. You know what I mean? What the fuck? That's work. That looks like a bit of work to me. These boys that
So
sleep on the floor if work was in bed. You know what I mean?
they're like, "Hey,
Ridiculous.
what system are we using to check in all of these syringes?" I just fucking put it in that old Excel file over there,
Yeah,
send it
yeah,
through.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? I don't even know anymore. Like, they
Yeah.
bring up
Jeez.
you see that, like, the doctors, they bring up this thing. You're like, how old is that program that these doctors
Yeah, I know.
are writing
Yeah,
on?
it's
It
yeah.
should be state of the fucking art. We have
Exactly.
the
Yeah,
smartest.
considering.
We have the IT people for Facebook We have the IT
Yeah.
people in this country for Google. We have the IT people. We have the IT people for Apple. We fill the IT departments in this country, in the country of Ireland, and the HSE was working on Windows 7.
Windows 7.
Only
Windows
in
7.
Ireland, man.
Fucking plug it in and dial up as well, I'd say.
Only in Ireland.
Ireland.
But here's an only in America one that I saw too, and I haven't known one. You know what the fastest growing sport in the U.S. was over the last 2 years?
Over the last 2 years, it's hardly soccer, is it?
No. Have you ever heard of pickleball?
No, never.
Pickleball is essentially it's like a small tennis court, and it's sort of like playing ping pong-ish on a small tennis court sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's badminton, ping pong and badminton sort of. So it's constantly.
Okay. Yeah.
You're
I'm
constantly.
looking at
So it's a lot of hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
There's not much movement. The courts are small, so there's not much movement. There's a lot of hand-eye coordination.
And you're playing with a small little bat. Yeah.
It's the largest pickleball is the largest growing sport in America, man.
Really?
Yeah. They're going to be. There's now numerous podcasts dedicated to pickleball, YouTube channels. It has its own magazine. I mean, looks like its own sponsorships are coming soon. $2.5 million they did in the Pickleball Professionals Association prize. That's $2.5 million you're paying for, man. Soon that's going to be an Olympic event.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Pickleball. Interesting name.
Yeah, it is. And the last thing I want to leave you on before we get out of here is that I know that you know a couple of guys that I'm in some WhatsApp friends groups with, and there are two of them in particular that you know both of them from our old racing days, our old online racing days. They're in another group.
Starting up again.
Yes, it is. Join Wheel to Wheel Racing, from what I understand. Why not? From what I understand, why not? Maybe on the Wheel to Wheel Racing network. So please catch them there. From what I'm hearing. So good luck to you, man. Good luck to you. But two guys. One of them who was a former racer, and one of them who was not a racer but did some things similar to what I did on the show. Two guys in a chat group of ours had a conversation about intelligence and IQ testing, and if the thing is, I'm gonna put together an IQ test for the two of them to do to see which one's smarter, and they're both waiting for me to put this together. You know what I mean? Like, and the other one can't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll announce the results to both of them at the same exact time. You know, it's one of those things, and they're both fired up to do it. I have to say, I think they'd both be nervous. They'd both be happy enough if it just went away and I forgot about it, but they'd also both be happy to do this, right? And you know the two guys. You know the two guys I'm talking about. So it'll be a very interesting choice. But so I read this thing that came out that said that in the British Medical Journal, the Christmas issue, which is like a fun sort of issue of this very serious medical journal, there was basically a few data points collected to decide once and for all which task was more difficult or more deserved. As in, you know the sayings, it's not brain surgery, or do you know, sure, well, it's not rocket science. Right? So they basically administered these intelligence tests to over 300 aerospace engineers and like 70 some neurosurgeons. So it's not brain surgery, and it's not rocket science, and they got results from it, and the results are kind of interesting. The results that they got from it, and I won't get into the actual numbers, but the results were kind of conditional. So the rocket scientists and the neurosurgeons were pretty much evenly matched, though the engineers, the aerospace engineers, were better at mental manipulations, while the brain surgeons were better at sort of semantic problem solving. Okay, so
Okay.
they were both pretty well evenly matched, but as you can see, you know what I mean, mental
Yeah.
manipulation. So constant thinking, that's
Yeah.
what a rocket scientist would be doing, an
Yeah.
aerospace engineer. And then,
Yeah.
brain surgeons would have to get to the bottom of the root of the cause of the problem. So they were better. So it
Yes.
makes sense. But the
Yeah.
thing was, there was no significant difference that was found, especially between the aerospace engineers and the control population. And the same held true, they said, with the numbers for the neurosurgeons. So they took a control group and they administered the same IQ test to them.
No
And
way.
there was no significant difference was found between these two groups. But there
Oh.
was a significant difference in the speed at which those groups came to the answer.
Okay.
So
Okay.
almost like they weren't overall more intelligent based on this exam, but they
Yeah.
were quicker at getting to the right answer. Their brains worked quicker to get them to the
Yeah.
right answer so they could move on to the next problem, because the brain is constantly trying to solve problems.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what set
Well,
them apart, not the actual intelligence, but
yeah.
how
Yeah.
fast they were as smart as a normal person. Isn't that
That's very
interesting?
interesting. Yeah. That is.
Isn't that interesting? So I don't know if we're going to announce the. I don't know if it would be good for me to announce the winner on the podcast. Well, I'm not sure if we're
Yeah.
going to end up doing that, Tony. But if we are, I'll make sure that I message out to you to
No.
let you know.
I'll keep this on. I'll keep reminding you. I'll give you a text every now and again going, any results.
So wheel to wheel racing. It is when are you guys starting again?
Oh, what is it? 6th of January, I think. 6th of
6th of
January.
January. What is your what's you'll be on Twitch?
Yeah, I'll be
Will you
on
still
Twitch.
be?
I'll be on the Wheel to Wheel channel. I'm sort of taking over that from my driving, so you'll hear all the drivers, all the rants, all the shouting, the obscenities, everything, So if you just want to hear Angry Chameleon crash, just join me on January 6th. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I wish you nothing but the best of luck. I've been asked a couple of times about my willingness to come back, and I ended up leaving that Discord, giving ownership back to Chameleon, leaving the Discord because I'd much rather tune into Twitch and watch it on somebody's channel. So I
Well,
appreciate
that's
that you'll
fair
be there for
enough.
me, pal.
I wish you could commentate. I actually wouldn't mind doing a bit of commentary with you. You know what I mean? It would be good fun. But I sort of committed to doing the racing. I'm not particularly keen on the F1 games, but look, it's a bit of fun, and it always was a bit of fun, so I might as well go again. So yeah, we'll see. I'm not going winning any titles anyway this year. Let's put it that way. Neither is Budge. But anyway.
Well, Tony, on that note, I wish you the merriest of Christmases, my friend, to you and to your family. And I'm sure we will talk personally before, but total shout out to you for coming on the show and giving up your last hour and a half, hour and 10 minutes to me so we can bullshit on. And we're getting viewers more and more every week, man. It's our listeners, people are downloading my show and listening, and I hope that they're enjoying it. And we got next week, next week we're going to have on the 22nd. You'll want to tune into this. I have on a fellow named Ethan Brown, who is a podcaster himself from California. He's an environmentalist, and his podcast is called The Sweaty Penguin, and it basically talks about the effects of climate change on different topics, on different subjects, not from a political standpoint, just basically here's what science is doing, here's the facts, here's what's sort of happening, and tries to actually make it sort of a enjoyable listen and fun. And he did a couple shows right down my alley. He did one on wine, he did one on coffee. As you know, that those are two things that are right down Romo's alley. So stay tuned in next week for him. Hopefully it's a good show, and I can put together something fun, and we will get you back on before the in the preseason, F1 preseason, so we can start talking about all the cool shit that's about to happen, pal.
Yeah, that's it, exactly, man. No, I really appreciate you for asking me on again. It's always a pleasure. Always great fun to talk about with you as well, and you have some interesting questions which catch me off guard, but that's all part and parcel of it. It's good going. So, well, look, man, Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll be talking to you in the meantime. Thanks very much.
Folks, this is Romo. I am here because I like to talk some shit sometimes, and sometimes you guys listen too, and welcome into the studio when you were in. This is the Hit the Lotto podcast. This is a cool as fuck theme song by Pet Fangs. Hope you guys enjoyed yourself. See you next week. Got a great show next week. See you then. Bye-bye.
$3,000 gonna buy back in, but you hope I win. Why? $3,000. So gotta hit the lotto. 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 Mega flex. Hit the lotto. Who knows what's next? Hit the lotto. Slurpee. Coke Icy. Hit the lotto.